Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's our 8 o'clock hour. The time is 8:06, and it's O'Connor and Company. We've got 1 hour to go here before we hand it off to Chris Plant. And at 8:35, we'll speak with Chuck Thies, D.C. political analyst, talk about the Trey-on-White election yesterday. I'm Larry O'Connor, and Patrice Onwuka's here on a rare Wednesday appearance because she's testifying tomorrow on Capitol Hill. Patrice, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Good to be here.
Julie will be here tomorrow, and all will be right with
and
the
then
world.
I'll be back on Friday.
There you go. It's hard to keep straight. It's also hard to keep straight what's going on in this Virginia governor's race and down-ticket races as well, and the latest comings and goings of one Richard Cox and the Loudoun County School Board. Thank God Nick Minock is on the scene there for WJLA ABC 7. Nick, we have a potpourri of topics. Always good to talk to you, my friend. Thanks for joining us today.
Likewise. Good morning.
Let's start with your analysis of the fundraising. Winsome Earl Sears, the Republican candidate, raised $5.9 million in the last quarter, which is good, but nowhere near the $10.7 million that Abigail Spanberger raised. Are we aware, though, of how much of that money is from in-state or out-of-state? Because Democrats recently have been raising a lot of money from, California and other places.
Sure. So we're still combing through all the details of these campaign finance reports, but both campaigns are receiving a significant amount of money from out of state. It looks like Abigail Spanberger is in the strongest position when it comes to fundraising at this point and cash on hand. Looking at their campaign finance reports that were released this month, Abigail Spanberger has raised $20.5 million in the entirety of her campaign. Compared to Winsome Earl Sears, she raised $11.6 million. And in terms of cash on hand, the money they have available today, Spanberger has $15.2 million. Winsome Earl Sears has $4.5 million cash on hand. So right now, Spanberger has 3 times as much money as Earl Sears.
Wow.
Well, and listen, the Democrats are already acting like she's won. You see features on Abigail Spanberger already being mentioned as a potential running mate for whoever gets the presidential nomination in 2028. I'm serious. They're just acting like they've got this thing in hand, but I don't think the polling necessarily shows that Spanberger is running away with it despite the money on hand.
Yeah, I've heard about different polls, internal polls, showing this close, showing Spanberger in the lead. There's some Democrats who think she's going to win, take this with 6-7 points in November. But I've heard about polls that show it more like a 3 or 4 point race at this point. Mm-hmm. The other interesting thing is the Attorney General's race. Virginia Attorney General Jason Miyares has outraised his Democratic opponent. Miyares has raised $9.3 million so far. Jay Jones has raised $4.9 million. And in terms of cash on hand, Miyares has $7 million with his campaign committees, whereas Jones, who just got out of a primary, has $1.2 million. Wow. And that's going to be an interesting one to watch, too. I know Democrats feel like, hey, we can win the governor's race, but they think it's going to be tough to beat Jason Miyares.
So, Nick, let's go over to Loudoun County. Specifically, you've been giving some really great coverage on the school board over there. And we are very well familiar with the school board, their antics, and obviously the fact that they are trying very hard to cover up what they're doing and making sure parents don't have a voice in that. And I think we all know often, all too well, what has happened in past school board meetings where parents, got animated pushing back against what the school board was up to. You want to share an update with what they're trying to do next to limit parents' voices?
Right. And this is one worth paying attention to if you live out in Loudoun County. There are some school board members, when they come back in August, they're going to be looking at limiting public comment even further, restricting the amount of public comment days from twice a month to once a month. And this comes after a number of parents at the last 2 regular school board meetings showed up to voice their concerns about LCPS's locker room policy that allows students to use locker rooms and bathrooms at school based on their gender identity, not biological sex. And that came to a head after our reporting on 3 boys that LCPS is investigating for Title IX sexual harassment and sex-based discrimination because they questioned why there was a girl in the boys' locker room. And so that's why a lot of parents showed up. And then once we came to the committee meeting after those meetings, Ann Donahue, a school board member, said, hey, I would like to make a suggestion that we dedicate one night a month to public comment instead of two. What's interesting about this is every time you see, I shouldn't say every time, but almost every time you see a large group of parents come out to speak against these locker room and bathroom policies, the school board decides they want new restrictions on public comment. Back in February 27, 2024, a large group of parents came out, and what happened after that? They shut off the cameras on the parents. Now it looks like they're going to be potentially reducing the number of times a year they do public comment.
Sheesh.
Speaking of people using the wrong restroom based on their equipment, let's say, Richard Cox, of course, is back in the news again. Your cameras, or some cameras that you had access to, saw him leaving a child's water park, a water park that was specifically geared toward children with disabilities. He was leaving that area, and you finally had a chance to ask a question of the very elusive chief of police of Fairfax County, Kevin Davis, who's been sort of not accepting your invitations for an interview. So you went to a press conference. How'd that exchange go with regard to you getting information about the disposition of Mr. Cox?
Sure. So I'll say this about Kevin Davis. He usually always does interviews with me. This is, I think, the one time I can recall he would refuse to do an interview with me is on Richard Cox. And what we wanted to ask is why didn't the Fairfax County Police Department charge Richard Cox for things like indecent exposure, indecent liberties with children, exposing himself allegedly in women's locker rooms at 3 different county rec centers late last year? And oh, by the way, why haven't they charged Richard Cox for proximity issues? He's a registered Tier 3 sex offender. This video shows him going into a playground that have day programs for children and a spray water park at Franconia Rec Center that was designed for kids with developmental disabilities. The video shows him going into these spaces. Why haven't they charged him? When Arlington County has charged him for these crimes that he did in Arlington County, nearly identical crimes. Well, Kevin Davis told us in that press conference that they haven't found probable cause. But here's the thing, Arlington County has.
Yeah.
And look, if you've got video of Richard Cox going into these women's spaces and places where he's not supposed to be, wouldn't that be probable cause?
You would
That's
think.
what I asked him.
You would think. And is this going to make its way into this special election? Mr. Walkinshaw, the Democrat nominee for the 11th District, he's running in this special election. He's on the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors right now. He has the ability to raise these issues and try to find out what's going on with regard to these policies. Do you think that this might be a factor in the race?
Potentially. It depends what the Republican candidate does with it. I have asked Supervisor James Walkinshaw a number of times to do interviews on this subject, going back several months. I've even asked him an email, do you support men going into women's locker rooms and bathrooms? This is a policy the county has. Does he support it? No answer. So I guess we'll see. I will. One of the rec centers, by the way, is in his magisterial district, in the Braddock district. It's Audrey Moore Rec Center. And Richard Cox went there. So this happened in his community that he represents on the county board, but I haven't seen him say anything about it.
I wonder why he doesn't want to talk to reporters. Does he not believe in free press and making sure that the newspapers and radio and television stations can talk to a candidate while they're running for office? Well, stay on that, would you, Nick Minock? And we'll see if any of your colleagues, by the way, who Mr. Walkinshaw might give an interview to, whether they actually raise this question. We'll be watching.
That's right.
Always good to talk to you.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
It is 8:15.